And we have even more breaking news now, this time in the Russia investigation. CNN is just now learning President Trump's legal team is preparing answers to written questions from special counsel Robert Mueller, according to sources familiar with the matter. This is a major development after months of negotiations between the president's legal team and special counsel Robert Mueller's investigators. This could signal the beginning of the end of the Russia investigation. The sources said the questions for the president are focused on matters concerning the investigation into conspiracy between any Trump campaign associates and Russians seeking to interfere in the 2016 election. Let's get right to CNN's Evan Perez and Gloria Borger, who have this breaking story. Evan, what can you tell us about the questions that the Trump team is preparing to answer?
Well, Jacob, this is a big moment, as you said. These questions that they've now received from the special counsel have to do with matters before the Trump inauguration. And this is a moment, obviously, that's been in the making for about 10 months, almost 10 months of negotiations between the special counsel's office and the Trump legal team. And so, as you said, these are questions that are focused on the collusion, the big collusion question, whether or not there was anybody inside or associated with the Trump campaign who was working or talking to or sharing information with the Russians in their attempt to influence the 2016 election. What is not on the table in these questions, we're told, is obstruction, which is something that we know is a big part of the Mueller investigation. That is still something that the two teams are still discussing. They're still in negotiations over. We do have a statement that we got from Jay Sekulow, one of the president's attorneys. Put it up just for a second here. We are in continuing discussions with the special counsel, and we do not comment on those discussions. Again, that's Jay Sekulow, the president's attorney. Again, this is the first round, what we expect of these questions, and we expect that there could be additional.
Is there anything, Gloria, that might prevent President Trump and his team from refusing to answer these questions? In other words, do they have to answer them?
They don't have to, but then they could be facing a subpoena. So I think they'd rather answer these questions. And the fact that they're allowed to answer them in writing is kind of a big moment for them, because early on, it was all about the president. We need to have him testify. And as Evan says, he may still have to testify about obstruction because the Mueller team may want to know about intent, and only the president can answer what was in his mind when he fired James Comey. But as for pre-inauguration, they're not protected by executive privilege. So they know, I think, that they have to provide answers to these questions. And if you were the president's lawyers, would you rather do it, or would you rather have Donald Trump sit down and do it?
And Gloria, should we surmise from this that the public will pretty soon, being a relative term, of course, pretty soon know what Robert Mueller's conclusions are? The fact that they're getting, I mean, usually when there's an investigation, somebody like President Trump would be the last person that you would interview.
Right. I think we can surmise. I don't know what pretty soon is, obviously after the election. After the election. And I think we can assume that Mueller's team has been writing a report all along. I mean, it's not like they're going to pull an all-nighter and do a report right after the election. So I think they've been gathering their conclusions all along. And this argument has been going on, as Evan says, for almost a year. And they had to find a way to kind of get past the impasse. There still may be another impasse when it comes to the president himself personally testifying.
And that's the thing also, because it's not over, the idea, even though these are written questions for this first round. It's been a moving target whether or not President Trump is going to ultimately sit down, especially, as you say, if the obstruction charges, questions are not part of this first round, so they're in a second round, and you need to get to what's in President Trump's mind. Take a listen to President Trump this morning on Fox and Friends, asked about whether or not he would sit for an interview with Mueller.
Well, it seems ridiculous that I'd have to do it when everybody says there's no collusion, but I'll do what is necessary to get it over with.
So it sounds like it's still possible, even though there are written questions here, it's still possible that there'll be an in-person interview.
Right. It's still possible that I could be president. It's not going to happen, right? So
I would vote for you.
I don't know. Yeah.
But look, it is technically still possible that the president will sit down for an interview, but that is almost not going to happen.
Oh, that's
almost certainly not going to happen. The president's lawyers are all against it. They all believe that this take-home test, which is sort of like college-style version of things where you answer questions, his lawyers are actually going through the documents that they already provided to the special counsel, so they make sure the answers match up. That's the best way to answer these questions. They believe that protects this president. If he sits down, they believe that would be a very bad course.
But it's a take-home test. They're answering for the president.
Right.
So they're doing the work on this from documents they've already presented to the special counsel.
But you seem skeptical that the president will ever sit down with Mueller, especially with these written questions happening. Does that mean a subpoena to force him to comply with an in-person interview is off the table?
I think it's not off the table, but I do think that the president's lawyers believe that this puts them in the best legal position. We've written about this a thousand times, that they believe this will protect the president if that comes to pass. They believe they can defend him if they can show that they've answered every question that Mueller has up to a certain point, and then they can fight it out in court if it comes to that. They believe that doing it this way, answering these questions in written form, will then put them in a place where they can say, look, we've given you everything you possibly can. Now you're crossing a line into executive privilege and interfering with the president's duties under Article 2 of the Constitution, and let's fight it out.
And Gloria, the president says no collusion. Everybody says there is no collusion. The truth of the matter is, we have no idea what Robert Mueller is going to conclude. He could drop a bombshell, or he could disappoint the resistance.
We don't have any idea. Right. He's a black box, and he's been working on this for what, 2 years, year and a half. He's done an awful lot of indictments, and he's done a lot of indictments of Russians. So we really, we honestly don't know, but we know that the last thing in the world his lawyers want is to put the president in front of Team Mueller and answer questions about obstruction. And they do believe that executive privilege is on their side when it comes to something that happened post-inauguration.
And they surely see this development as at least a step for them.
One last thing, Jake. I think it is clear, based on our reporting, that people are still going before the special counsel and they're still being asked about things that would relate to collusion. So it is clear that the special counsel is very much still looking into that question.
All right. Great story. Congratulations on the scoop. Appreciate it.